Would you complete your journey of enlightenment, if it meant losing everything and everyone around you today, that you love? Welcome back to Mysteries and Facts, where we talk about all things mysterious, and today, talking about the Pandavas' journey to heaven through Mount Kailash. If you have been a subscriber of this channel for a while, then you know that we love talking about the beautiful and mysterious Mount Kailash. Today, however, our focus will be on the journey of the Pandavas to heaven using the mountain. But, who exactly are the Pandavas? For those unfamiliar with epic Mahabharata, the Pandavas were the 5 sons of Pandu, the crowned king of the Kuru kingdom, and his wives Kunti and Madri. The word Pandavas is derived from Pandu, meaning descendants of Pandu. Although they are typically referred to as the sons of Pandu, the truth is that Pandu could not father any children. He had been cursed by a wise man named Kindama and his wife. They cursed him because Pandu shot them while they were mating during one of his hunts. He and his wife had used their divine powers to take the form of a deer, but before they could finish the copulating process, Pandu shot them. With his dying breath, Kindama cursed Pandu to die or lose his erection anytime he was ready to have sex with his wife. This left him unable to have children despite having capable wives. To have children, Pandu and Kunti had to resort to unconventional means. Kunti used a boon she had received from the sage, Durvasa. This boon allowed her to have a child from any god she respected, without entering into wedlock with him. After birthing 3 sons, she passed this on to Madri at Pandu's request, allowing her to also have 2 sons. Through this, they had sons with different devas or gods. These sons were Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev. Yudhisthira was born to Yama, the god of death, making him a just and righteous leader. Bhima was born to Vayu, the god of wind, giving him immense strength. Arjuna was born to Indra, king of gods, making him a peerless warrior. Nakula and Sahadev were the twins born to the Ashwini Kumaras, divine physicians of gods. Pandu renounced his royalty and went to live in the woods after his issue with Kindama. After Pandu's death, however, Kunti brought the Pandavas back to Hastinapura, the Kuru capital, where they were raised with their cousins. These cousins were the Kauravas, the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana, the eldest son of the Kauravas, who were driven by insecurity and jealousy, rejected the Pandavas as his cousins. This situation was not helped by the brothers' polyandrous marriage to the Panchala princess, Draupadi. Over time, this bitterness escalated into deep-seated hatred, sowing the seeds of numerous conflicts between the cousins. This included the Pandavas' exile due to the treacherous game of dice, where they were cunningly manipulated into losing their kingdom. This was only supposed to last for 13 years. In those 13 years, they were expected to spend the first 12 years in the forest, leading a life of hardship and seclusion. The 13th year was to be spent in incognito, without revealing their true identities. If they were identified, they would extend their exile by 12 years and repeat the cycle. The brothers were however able to successfully see it through. During their exile, the Pandavas maintained their commitment to Dharma, which is righteousness, and followed the conditions of the wager diligently. They completed the 12 years in the forest, living a life of hardship and seclusion. In the 13th year, they lived in the court of King Virata, in disguise, using different identities to remain hidden. They were able to remain hidden and incognito for the 13th year. After completing their agreed-upon period of exile, the Pandavas returned to Hastinapura to claim their kingdom. They appealed to the Kauravas, led by Duryodhana, to honor the terms of the wager and return their rightful share of the kingdom. Duryodhana was however unwilling and refused to return any portion of the kingdom to the Pandavas. Naturally, this caused friction and conflicts to the extent that Lord Krishna attempted to mediate. Duryodhana, however, remained adamant in his refusal to yield any portion of the kingdom, setting off events that ultimately culminated in the Kurukshetra war. The Pandavas viewed this as a battle for righteousness, dharma, and the restoration of their rightful inheritance. They believed it was their duty to fight for justice and reclaim what was rightfully theirs. The war lasted 18 days, and as noble and understandable as their intentions were, it resulted in the loss of many lives and properties. The Pandavas led by Yudhisthira were victorious in the war, allowing them to take back their kingdom, Hastinapura. Unlike their cousin, Yudhisthira sought to reconcile with the surviving Kauravas, offering them a chance for forgiveness and redemption. Some of the Kaurava brothers chose to align with the Pandavas and were spared. You'd think regaining their kingdom is where their story ends, but the horrors of the war left an immense burden on their conscience and souls. They soon realized that despite being on the side of Dharma, they too had sin on their hands for participating in such a massive destruction of life. This affected them in more ways than one of the effects being an inability to sleep. On one of those nights when they couldn't sleep, Lord Krishna appeared to them in a dream and advised them to embark on a journey of atonement, to elevate their souls. He said their participation in the war, however righteous the cause, had inflicted sins that needed to be cleansed. Once they woke up, the brothers took this as a divine message and decided to renounce their royal comforts and embark on the much-needed pilgrimage to cleanse their souls. After all, each of the brothers had their turn ruling the kingdom, something their mother had wanted. Some adaptations of the story state that they had ruled for about 36 years at this point, but that's not really stated in the original text. As with all great leaders, their people pleaded with them to stay and continue ruling, but the heart of the Pandavas was set on achieving salvation from their sins. The Pandavas held a grand ceremony and enthroned their grandson Parikshit as the new king. With that done, they set out on their journey. They were not alone, however. Their wife, Draupadi, accompanied them. She too wanted to commit herself to spiritual pursuits. Draupadi was not the only unexpected companion for the journey. As they left their abode, a stray dog came running and following them. Try as much as they did, they could not get it to leave. When it comes to the journey of the brothers, there are various adaptations of it. For the first part of the narration, we try to stick to the Mahaprastanika Parva, or the Book of the Great Journey, as much as possible. For those unfamiliar with it, it's the 17th of the 18 books of the epic Mahabharata. In the original text, the Pandavas set out for the journey with their faces towards the east. They continue on this path till they meet the god, Agni. This was at Lyadiam Salilarnavam, which translates as the Red Waters. It's believed that this is possibly the river Brahmaputra. Agni did not, however, appear to them for appearing's sake. He asked that Arjuna returned Gandhava, a bow he had borrowed from the god Varuna. Arjuna had used this bow in the burning of the Khandava forest, but that's a story for another time. His brothers encouraged him to let go off the bow, and he threw it into the waters with its never-finishing quivers. From there, they moved towards the west coast of India, till they met a sight that left them nothing short of depressed. They were supposed to be at Dvarka, but all they saw was a city submerged in water, devoid of its beauty and life. With their hearts broken, they head up north till they reach Rishikesh, where it is believed that they met sages that impacted spiritual teachings and guidance to them. Once they were done at Rishikesh, they headed towards the Himalayas, which is where things started to get dicey for them. The retellings of the story state that their beloved wife, Draupadi, could no longer continue the journey and died there. If you are enjoying this video and haven't hit the like and subscribe buttons already, this will be a good time to do so. Bhima had always been very protective of her and wasn't handling the loss well. He asked Yudhisthira why she had died, and he told him that although they were all married to her, she showed partiality to Arjuna, which was her sin. Her death was nothing more than her atonement for it. After mourning and moving on, Sahadeva and Nakula were also lost. They fell one after the other, and Bhima, who was already dealing with the loss of Draupadi, even broke down some more. He repeated his questions, and Yudhisthira told him both brothers suffered from pride and vanity. Sahadeva believed there was none equal to him in wisdom, whilst Nakula believed there was none as handsome or beautiful as he. Yudhisthira added that their sins and suffering were a way of cleansing them from their sins. With these explanations, they mourned and moved on, but Arjuna fell on the way. He too died. Once again, Bhima asked why, and Yudhisthira told him, Arjuna's pride was in his skills. He believed he was the most skilled and talented person in the world. He also believed that there was none as heroic as he. Yudhisthira added that his suffering was a form of purification. With 3 of the 5 brothers down, the only individuals left on the journey were Bhima and Yudhisthira himself, not forgetting their faithful canine companion. It seemed like Yudhisthira and Bhima might complete the journey together, but that expectation was cut short when Bhima fell to the ground. Exhausted with his strength fading, he realized that there was no way he could make it, so he asked Yudhisthira why such a fate had befallen him, the strongest of the brothers. Yudhisthira mentioned that his arrogance and gluttony were the cause of his suffering. He used to eat so much that he had little to no regard for the hunger of others. With his brothers gone, Yudhisthira had to complete the journey alone with the stray dog following. In the Mahabharata Parva, it's stated that they went up one of the mountains in the Himalayas. Some adaptations have referred to it as Mount Kailash whilst others have called it Mount Meru. As they climbed up, Indra appeared to them in his chariot and urged Yudhisthira to join him. As much as this was a good offer, Yudhisthira refused it because he didn't want to go to the heavens without his brothers and their wife. Indra assured him that all of them, after dying, had entered heaven. This was good news, but Yudhisthira asked again if his dog could join the chariot, and Indra said, no. This was all Yudhisthira needed to hear. He declined the offer. He couldn't leave the dog, who had become a companion and friend throughout the journey. He told Indra he couldn't abandon him, to which Indra reminds him that he did abandon his brothers and wife when they passed on. He was that focused on completing the journey which had earned him merits. In defense, Yudhisthira mentioned that he only did so because they had passed on, and he had no power to revive them. He added that there is neither friendship nor enmity with those who are dead. The dog, on the other hand, was alive and he couldn't abandon it. As he defended the dog, it looked on as though it understood him, and after a while, it transformed into the deity Dharma. Dharma mentioned how impressed he was, and added that there was no one on the earth and in the heavens equal to him. He was even told that his achievements had transcended all others before him, because he would now make it to heaven with his human body. In some adaptations, however, Yama is the one that appears to him, but the essence of the encounter and the recognition of Yudhisthira's virtues remain consistent in the overall narrative. After their interaction, they move on to the heaven he had always wanted so much. He is reunited with his siblings, who had atoned for their sins in death, and made it to heaven. Now this narration follows what's recorded in the epic Mahabharata. Other retellings and adaptations of the story include some slight changes and differences. In another adaptation of the story, they headed towards the south when they left their kingdom, crossing mountains, forests and rivers. Their first stop after several days was the kingdom of Gandhara, which was ruled by Shakini's son. The reception here was grand, as the Pandavas were greatly revered as the legends who defeated the Kauravas. They were honored and offered a place in the palace, but they politely refused, stating they wished to continue their pilgrimage. From Gandhara, they moved steadily eastwards, till they reached the kingdom of Chedi, which was ruled by Shishupala's son. Here too they refused to accept the comfort that was offered them and decided to focus on the pilgrimage. From there, they crossed the Yamuna River, and climbed the steep Vindhya mountains. While everyone was experiencing the challenges associated with climbing these hills, Draupadi struggled the most, given her age and all, but she never complained. Once they reached the holy banks of the Ganges, they bathed in her sacred waters. They expected some sort of divine reaction, but felt nothing. This made them believe that their time on earth was almost ending. From the Ganges, they headed eastward towards the kingdom of Vidya, where they also refused to be hosted. From there, with their eyes fixated on Mount Kailash, they entered the dense forests, which abounded with sages and ascetics. In these forests, however, it became evident that Draupadi could not continue the journey anymore. Her body succumbed to exhaustion and she fell. Bhima carried her to the shade of a banyan tree nearby, and laid her reverently on the ground. It was at this point that she breathed her last, which broke the hearts of her husbands. They wept bitterly, and were comforted by the fact that she had gone ahead of them to heaven. The Bhagavata Purana, which is one of the 18 major Puranas in Hinduism, provides additional details about Draupadi's departure. It states that when she fell, Bhima wanted to pick her up, but she refused, preferring to die in the Himalayas, rather than be carried. According to the Bhagavata, she then began her journey to heaven through smoke from her funeral pyre. The Pandavas continued their journey without her, but unbeknownst to them, their lovely wife would not be the only one to pass on. Weakened by the strain of the journey, Nakula, Sahadev, Arjuna and Bhima died along the way, leaving only Yudhisthira and the stray dog which had followed them. Upon reaching Mount Kailash, Yudhisthira began ascending the summit. Indira, popularly referred to as the king of the Devas, suddenly appeared in a celestial chariot. He urged Yudhisthira to abandon the stray dog and join him in his chariot, but Yudhisthira refused to join him, unless he allowed the dog to come too. Unknown to Yudhisthira, this was a test that he passed. The dog was none other than Dharma, the god of righteousness, in disguise. He had wanted to ensure that Yudhisthira was worthy of heaven. In other words, Yudhisthira's great virtue had been tested and he had been found worthy. Just like the ending of our previous narration, they make it to heaven and it looks like all is well, but in some adaptations, Yudhisthira gets to heaven and his siblings are atoning for their sins in hell whilst our cousins, the Kauravas, are sitting in heaven. This upsets him, he asks why, and he's told they had atoned for their sins, but he refutes that explanation, asking why his siblings should be in hell, whilst the likes of the Kauravas who are greedy and responsible for the war are in heaven. In the end, he wishes to be with his siblings since they have never been separated. Finally, they all end up in heaven after atoning for their individual sins. Their being sent to hell is symbolic, and is used to symbolize the temporary phase of purification and redemption, rather than eternal damnation. Their time in hell serves as a time for atonement and the cleansing of their sins. The Vanaparva section of Mahabharata also explores the significance of this journey to the Pandavas. It mentions that it was time for the brothers to cast off their earthly forms and attain moksha. For those unfamiliar with the term, it refers to the ultimate spiritual goal of attaining freedom from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, or samsara. Their Mahaprasthan was the ultimate act of detachment, withdrawing from worldly duties and comforts to realize deeper truths. The Padma Purana emphasizes how their great journey signified the shedding of their mortal frames to attain oneness with the eternal Brahma. While Yudhisthira was the one to complete the difficult spiritual quest alive and reach heaven physically. Symbolically, each Pandava fell when their time came, mounting progressively closer to the great Kailash peak. Draupadi was the first to pass on, followed by Nakula and Sahadev, the twins representing duality. These remind us of the need to transcend dualities, like joy-sorrow, and success-failure. Arjuna, an exemplar of single-minded skill and focus, was next. His legendary talents had already fulfilled their purpose on earth. Then fell Bhima, the symbol of brute physical strength, which must ultimately be left behind on the spiritual path. Finally, only Yudhisthira, the epitome of virtue, patience and righteousness, remained. His journey represents the ascent of consciousness, dharma, rising above bodily limits. Carrying just compassion, he completed the passage, awake and alive. Even the faithful dog, accompanying Yudhisthira, has its own significance and symbolic meaning. The Mahabharata explains that dharma or righteousness follows the virtuous like a dog follows its master. The dog tests Yudhisthira's dedication to righteousness when Indra asks him to abandon it to enter heaven. By refusing to forsake the dog, Yudhisthira upheld the highest dharma, and his compassionate response reflected his spiritual wisdom and non-attachment. The dog, revealed as dharma, further proves Yudhisthira's worthiness of being in heaven. The Pandavas' Mahaprasthan exemplifies the journey of humans towards spiritual awakening. It also signifies transcending ego and desires to understand deeper truths of existence. The epic quest of the Pandavas inspired generations then, and continues to inspire generations now, on the path towards moksha. Though the literal journey was taken by the Pandavas, it signifies the inner pilgrimage that we all must undertake towards enlightenment. This will require perseverance, detachment and moral courage. One question remains: are you ready for your journey? Share your thoughts and feelings with us in the comment section. Before this video, had you heard this story? Which adaptation did you hear? Which was your favorite and what lessons did you pick from it? Kindly share them with us in the comments section. And while you are at it, do not forget to like this video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more. Thanks for staying with us. See you in the next video.